morning. For those I haven't met, my name is Hannah. I'm a second year in the CDM track, and I'm really excited to introduce our forum speaker, Kelli, to you guys today. She's actually someone that I got to meet a few years ago when I was very new at my first job out of undergrad and was super awkward going to events around town for it. And when I met her, she just put me at ease. And it's because she has this uncanny ability to make strangers feel like old friends. And that's probably why she has a podcast called Coffee with Strangers. So if you haven't seen her there, you might have heard her on Radio 1 Richmond, or you might have seen her around town at one of the many, many events that she does. They're all usually very unique urban events at places like the VMFA, Lewis Ginter, Creative Mornings, the list goes on and on. But she is really busy, because she is building a personal brand for herself that's all around her passions and who she is as a person, which is awesome, but I will let her tell you more about that. So let's give a warm welcome to Kelli Lemon.
So the pictures that are going to be up on the screen are just photos, just something for you guys to look at. So there's no rhyme and reason to them. I tried to put them in order last night, but I was out chasing the banana. So, thank you. I figured that would wake y'all up a little bit. How many of you all knew that the banana was at New York Deli? Yeah, y'all went there first. He's like, I'm just trying to figure out the smart people in the room. Here we go. And because we were out having a great night last night, I cheers everything. So if you have anything in your hand, you want to go ahead and hold it up. May the speech inspire you, may you take something away from it, but more importantly, let's have a dope kick-ass Friday. Cheers, y'all. So, once again, my name is Kelli Lemon. I am Kelli with an I, lemon just like the fruit. And that is a very important thing as I talk about my brand and kind of how I built my brand. I am originally from Tidewater, Virginia. 757, there we go, yeah. If you know anything about Tidewater and those that are from there, very military. A melting pot of a whole bunch of different people that kind of come in and out of that city. So you get to know people, but then kind of they go away, and sometimes you'll meet them a little bit later. But I was not in the military. I'm not a military brat, but for whatever reason, my parents decided that every 5 years we would move, like I was in the military. Saying that to say is that I love Tidewater. I thought Tidewater was this great place. And I would venture out in the state a little bit, but my junior year, my parents gave me a very interesting decision. They worked in Richmond, and they said, Kelli, junior year, y'all know how awkward that was. Junior year, you got all your friends, your crew. Kelli, will you move to Richmond, Virginia? Back then, and I'll talk about my age in a little bit, but back then, the only thing you knew about Richmond, Virginia, it was the state capital, and it was crime. That's the only things that were known about Richmond. It was one of the most dangerous places to live. It is completely a different Richmond than it is right now. So in my mind, I'm like, state capital, dangerous place. All right, let's move to Richmond, right? No, Kelli, we're moving to Hanover. Not Richmond, just shout out to Hanover, yes. But for a girl that's from Tidewater to think she's moving to this big city of Richmond, and I'm on Studley Road, and I'm going to Atlee High School, that's not Richmond. What are you doing here? And it was a culture shock for me. I was energetic. It was my junior year. I was ready to, embrace myself with a lot of things. And I walked into a high school that kind of said, hey, little black girl, who are you? And why are you talking to us? Why are you trying to get to know us? Why are you being friendly? And so that's when I really realized that, wow, there's some things that I probably need to change, and I need to figure out a way to make a name for myself. So because I knew that Broad Street got me to Richmond, that was the first thing I learned when I moved to Hanover. I learned to get on Broad Street. And again, it is not the Broad Street that you see right now. I would be on Lee Street on the weekends. I would be out at Bird Park. I would do all these things to engulf myself in the city of Richmond. Then, because I was only spending 2 years at Atlee, I had decided that I was going to Hampton University, JMU, or Howard University. Those were the 3 schools that I was going to go to. And you couldn't change my mind about it until my guidance counselor at Atlee said, you don't take Spanish 3 or whatever number Spanish it was at the time. You're not going to get into schools like UVA. So I applied to UVA, and I got in. Wahoo to all the UVA grads out here. At that time, and I'll start to tell my age now, it was 1994. Affirmative action was huge. So I was like, am I going to a school that is only going to let me in because of the color of my skin? And I had to have a couple of debates with myself about why would I want to go to a place that's not just accepting me? Why would I go to a place where I have to fight my degrees every day, or why I'm there? It was the best decision I ever made. First year, Career Center. Went to the Career Services Center. They asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, well, I think I want to do sports marketing. I want to be a dentist. And then I want to have a farm out in Gloucester County. And she looked at me and she said, okay, you can do all of that. But guess what? All you have to do here is network. UVA has so many connections. Major in what you want to major in, and I promise you, you will get a job and you will get into your career. Telling a first-year student that had to be the most craziest thing at the time for someone to say to me, but also, what am I supposed to do with that? Well, I decided that my degree at UVA would be called life. I decided to live. I went to classes, yeah, I had enough to pass, and I'm saying pass, y'all, but I lived life. I held 3 jobs. And all of the jobs that I held at UVA were all about what I wanted to get into. So I thought about sports marketing. So I said, I have to get into the athletic department. I went to the athletic department, started doing Cavalier connections, and then I also interned for baseball, basketball, and football. So that got me in the door of athletics. I wanted to make sure that I could dress properly, that I looked good. So I worked at the mall. It was a huge mall in Charlottesville, y'all. If anybody knows, this Fashion Square Mall was huge. That's a lie. But I went and worked at the mall because I needed to make sure that I had clothes. And my last job, well, I had 4 jobs, wow. I worked at the library because I needed to study, and I needed a place to study. And then I also worked at the Lambeth store. And that's where I got my snacks and stuff. So again, all of those things were because I worked in different areas that I knew would help me in my career. My senior year at UVA, I didn't have a job. It was May. I was about to graduate, and I went to my boss at the time. His name is Wood Seelig. He is the athletic director at ODU currently. And I went to Wood and I said, Wood, I don't have a job. What am I going to do? He said, hold on a second. He made one phone call down to David Glass, who was the women's basketball coach at VCU, and in one phone call, because they were college roommates, I got a job at VCU. Again, I'm in the Career Services Center my freshman year, and they're telling me just to network, UVA will get you a job, and damn if it didn't. So, at 22, I was hired as the assistant director for basketball operations at VCU. That was 1998. You can clap for that. I was making $27,000. In 1998, making $27,000, woo! You were doing it. Like I was big time. But guess what? The director of men's basketball operations, he was making 55. And so that's when I started to learn, I'm really going to have to hone this in, take some accountability, and take some recognition for myself and put my name out there to build myself. As I'm sitting in these boardrooms at VCU at the time, especially in athletics, if any of you all were here back then, I don't know the age range, but if any of you all were here back then, again, VCU was not VCU. It was Virginia Commonwealth University. It didn't turn into VCU until kind of this program and the way that it was branded was here. So we had to fight to get students not only to go to athletic events, we had to fight for students to stay on campus. We had to fight for any programming that we wanted because that just wasn't in the normal thing that VCU students did. So we fought a lot to kind of change the narrative and the brand here at VCU, and I started to challenge the things that we did. Dr. Trani at the time dumped a lot of money into student affairs and said, keep these students on campus. Do whatever you need to do to keep these students on campus. So I was responsible for a lot of traditions that happened undergrad. Homecoming. They didn't have homecoming. Who does homecoming for basketball? But we created a homecoming committee and started that tradition here. The Six Man, the Rowdy Rams, the fact that the Fall Block Step Show, which is the historically black fraternities and sororities annual step show, one of the reasons why I went inside to make money for them. The fact that you have to touch the ram horns when you come in. Did anybody do that? Any VCU students had to touch the ram horns? Yeah. That was my idea. I tried my best to turn VCU into this place that students appreciated. You'd walk around campus and students wouldn't even have VCU gear on. The fact that we're selling VCU gear in Walmart and Target, like, that was just kind of unheard of. So that's funny. We'll talk about that in a minute too, as we go through all of these. But anyway, saying all of that, as I'm building this new student life here at VCU, I also was making those connections in Richmond. And so people were like, well, who is this little girl over on VCU's campus that's doing all of these things? Who is she and how do I get connected to her to make Richmond a little bit better? I left athletics for one reason and one reason at all, and it was because I wasn't valued. It was a good old boy network. I'd sit at the table. Not only was I the only black woman at the table, I was the only woman at the table. And I would hear my ideas, I would state my ideas, and they were not good ideas until the men said them the next day. And it was actually someone that currently still works for VCU that kicked me underneath the table and said, Kelly, you have to leave athletics. I didn't know where I was going to go. Student affairs at the time was like, Kelly, oh my God, come on over to student affairs. And that's kind of how my career at VCU blossomed. Every time I tried to leave VCU, they gave me a raise. So I felt like I was doing something right, but I wasn't satisfied. And meaning I wasn't satisfied is a 9 to 5 just wasn't enough for me. So I would go, I would do what I needed to do here in student affairs, and then I would literally leave and go home and get to work. And I was working on things that I was passionate about. I wanted to own a bar. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get people real drunk and serve them and, and watch all the things that happen in a bar. That's what I wanted to do. My parents said, not with that UVA degree and that master's from VCU, we are not opening a bar. But that's what I wanted to do. So how do I transition or convince my parents but that's what I want to do. That's what I'm passionate about. While I was in athletics, well, before I transferred into athletics, I didn't open, but I was a part of the opening of a major club that used to be in 6th Street Marketplace. It's no longer here. But that's where I started to bartend because I felt like if I wanted to understand what I was getting into, I needed to learn the system. So I started bartending in the clubs. I made way too much money bartending, way too much, like $1,000 weekends. It was crazy. And like 2 days worth, $1,000. You do that math, yeah. And I would just go and just blow it because I had a full-time job. But again, that was my passion. That's what I was working on at night and on the weekends. And then VCU Athletics asked me, hey, Kelly, we need a female to kind of go against the head basketball coach. You know sports. Will you be our sideline broadcaster? So for 11 years, if any of you all have been here this long, and I'm still on the sideline some games, I'm sideline broadcaster for VCU men's basketball. Why I got that job was because I could talk in front of people. I had no problem talking in front of people. I had no problem talking in front of a camera. And they literally threw me on the camera and told me to talk about sports. I'd be in the huddles. You wouldn't even know that I was there because I was so little and the guys would, so I would just sneak in the middle of the huddle, get the information that I needed, get out, and put it on the side of Rand Replay. Oh, there it is. There's one of the Rand Replay photos. But it taught me how to be in front of the camera, okay? So then I'm offered all these other opportunities to be in front of the camera. I started hosting concerts and events that allowed me to be in front of the camera, and Radio 1 Richmond literally said to me, if you can do TV, you can do radio. And so Radio 1 Richmond hired me to be the weekends person. So now I'm working 9 to 5 at VCU. I'm bartending on the sides, and I'm also doing radio. It makes no sense to my parents. It makes no sense to my friends. Why am I doing all of these things? The 9 to 5 paid the bills. The radio and the bar is what I wanted to do. And so to me, it wasn't work. That's what I was passionate about and what I was excited about. Again, as I tried to leave VCU, I would often be told, no, don't go yet. Or I'd have students that would say, Kelly, please wait till I graduate. So every 4 years, I got a new set of students that was like, Kelly, wait till I graduate. And I would stay and I would stay and I would stay. At some point, I did not know how to talk to my friends. I was 18 to 21 years old every 4 years. You understand that? Like, the things that were important to my friends, that's not what I was talking about on a day-to-day. I was talking to 18 to 21-year-olds. It's probably the reason why I still dress the way that I do and still kind of talk the way that I do. But my friends, I wasn't getting through to them. And so I finally decided in 2012 that I needed to graduate from VCU, technically, and move on to something else. And what was that thing that I was going to move on to? I had to figure out what was going to be next. And my friends decided to open up this little teeny restaurant in Jackson Ward called Mama J's. How many of you all have been? That's what I like to see. All right. Mama J's was just supposed to be this small place. Mama J's was supposed to be just another restaurant in Richmond. It opened up in 2009 during a recession, and it has been one of the #1 restaurants in Richmond since 2009. It never has gone down. It's been on list. And it pretty much was my voice to say, all right, we are more than just a soul food or a black restaurant. My goal was to make Mama J's a household name. And so that first photo that you saw with the RVA, with Mama J's inside of it, every time I got to talk, or every time I spoke, or every time I had an opportunity to talk about Mama J's, I did. I made sure they were in all of the publications. I made sure that Mama J was always on the news. Every list, every festival, everything that I could get Mama J's involved with, I did. Because I knew the food was good. I knew it was classic, I knew it was simple, and but more importantly, I knew it was good. And it made the Thrillist 50 places that you have to eat at before you die. And so the only one in the state of Virginia. And so I felt like I lived my goal. Because I was living my goal and I was happy and I was doing things that I wanted to do, this one thing changed my life. And I'm gonna pause for a second. Some of you guys have seen this. Some of you guys have not. So, and I apologize if it's annoying, because it annoyed me for a long time. All right, here we go. Technology, how do I put this right? Okay. How many of you guys have seen this? Okay, I see a couple of hands. Here we go. So Pharrell asked people to do their version of Happy. This is Richmond's. It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here to take a break. Hot air balloon with those legs. With the air like I don't care, baby. Oh, I'm showing y'all all my business. But I don't care. Anyway, get that back up there. There we go. Hold on. I don't know what that is. Hold on. Oh, gosh. Whatever's after happy. Oh, this is a good one, too. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So back up here. There we go. All right. So running down those steps at the Capitol made me happy. It really kind of boosted my energy about Richmond. And I say Richmond versus RVA, and we'll talk about that too. But about Richmond and the things that I wanted to do, the ways that I wanted to see myself happy. And so in December 2016, my boss at Mama J's, who is also my friend, he asked me, well, Kelli, what's next for you? Coffee with Strangers is blowing up. We hear you on the radio a lot. You're hosting events all over. That Kelli Lemon brand, people are starting to know you, and I mean, they come in the restaurant and ask for you. As your friend, I just kind of want to know what's next. And I said, well, the only thing that I can think of that's next is that I help you train the next person to come in here and work for you, because I'm about to quit. And he said, literally, that's probably the best thing that you've ever said. They wanted to see me continue to grow. They wanted to see the brand grow. And so I left Mama J's in December to open up my own company called Like the Fruit. That's what my LLC is under. And Like the Fruit is all the way a brand about social engagement and social connections. Right now, with the climate the way that it is, when people talk to me about social, they're always like, oh, girl, we're here for you. Power to the people. We're about to protest. We're about to rally. We're about to get behind these fights. Social. I'm like, all right, after y'all do all of that, I'll be over at New York Deli. I will meet y'all there, or we're going to James River, to hang out. Social to me is having fun. Social to me is how we are living this dope city. Social to me is how are we connecting with people in order to do business. In my mind, and as I sat at Mama J's, there were 4 things that always socially connected people while I was sitting at the bar talking to a random stranger. Food, sports, arts, education. You have a conversation about those 4 things, bless you, and you literally will be able to talk to anyone. So when it was given the opportunity to talk to anyone, I was volunteering with the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club. I met Matt Pachilli there. Matt said, Kelly, there is this podcast that this comedian does, and all he does is ride around the cars and talk to people. Have you seen it? And I said, no, I hadn't, but comedians riding in cars, having coffee, Jerry Seinfeld. Yeah, Seinfeld. I don't even see how much I watch that. But I hadn't seen it. He said, will you talk to strangers? I have no problem talking to strangers. And that's how our passion project, Coffee with Strangers, got started. I am in the 6th season of Coffee with Strangers, and we have talked to over 90 people. The whole premise behind the show is, how do you live this city? My hashtag is dope and different. What are you doing that is going to bring people to this city? What are you doing to live this city in a totally different way than what most would see it? And I have had people on that have introduced me to Richmond. I've had people on that have introduced people that have lived in Richmond all their life to this new way of living the city. And so when I think about the fact that I took a passion of just talking to people and I made that a little bit more a part of my brand, I get excited about that. So Coffee with Strangers this morning had its ultimate stranger. He's not a stranger to a lot of us, but I did the governor this morning. I was sitting in his office. I sat in his chair. Like, he literally said, don't touch that button. And you don't think that button is gonna be there? The button was there. So he said, don't touch the button. And I was like, oh, that's the button. Like, I wanted to touch it. But anyway, so Coffee with Strangers has evolved, and it's also helped to get my personal brand name out there. Radio gets my name out there, but not in the way that I thought it would. How many of you all still listen to radio? Wow. You are a very rare breed. Most people don't listen to radio anymore because you got it on your phone, you're watching something else, you're listening to podcasts. So radio is a little bit, outdated. And so when I went on radio, I said, okay, my name will travel a little bit, but what's my name going to be? And so I started off on radio as Kels. I would see people out and they'd be like, don't you do radio? I'm like, yeah, my name's Kelli Lemon. And they'd be like, oh, so who are you on radio? And I'm like, I'm Kels on the radio. Kelli, Kels? No, I didn't get it. I didn't connect the two. Got me to thinking, oh my gosh, how do people know me? And so I said, they have to know me as Kelli Lemon. Kelli with an I, lemon just like the fruit. And that's what I started marketing. I bought the websites. I got all social media. Everything is lemon, 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 all over the place. And every time I introduce myself, I am Kelli Lemon. I'm just not Kelli, I'm Kelli Lemon. I make sure I tell you my first and last name so you remember it. And that's one of the things that I did in order to make sure that my personal brand stayed relevant. And then the next part of that is, what are the things that Kelli Lemon can create in this city that nobody is doing? How can I create things with Coffee with Strangers? How can I create things with one of my business partners who is a DJ? His name is DJ Lonnie B. How can we do unique things around Richmond that people aren't doing? But again, it's getting our personal brands and the way that we want to live this city out there. So some of these last slides are some of the things that are happening very soon. But one of the things that is happening is that I said, okay, I have to have a hub for all of this. I have to have a hub where people can come connect, where people can come and network and drink coffee and do things. And so in March, my Urban Hang Suite concept will open up on Broad Street. 3rd and Broad is where I'm going to put it. It is a place where people hang out. You get social, you talk, you have a cup of coffee if you want to, but more importantly, you are talking to one another. I'm gonna have video cameras all throughout the place, so you're interactive with people. But it is all about connecting, and I'm very excited about it because I haven't seen the concept out there in terms of a coffee shop that has this little back room that could turn into this little hangout. And when I say hangout, like, I want to get into your conversations. If you're talking about something, I want to be energized by your conversation. I want to see how you can help me or how we can help each other. You just never know if you stand up and say, I have an idea about stuff. I want to see all of y'all there too. But I have an idea about this. You have a target audience. You have a group of people that can kind of get into your brain and your business a little bit and give you some feedback and some suggestions. Of course, it'll have the TVs for the games. Of course, it will have a stage. It will always have a DJ set up, because if there's any time we need to get a jam going, or we're going to be in there having a little bit of a party. Because again, I am a social person, and that's what, I look forward to. I want to make sure that my brand stays positive and stays relevant. And when I'm looking at the city of Richmond versus RVA, right now, I am more focused on Richmond because RVA is very commercial. Richmond is historic in the city that is going through some struggles right now. There's a lot of people that know know RVA, but they don't know what's going on in Richmond. And I want to make sure that when I talk to people in Gilpin Court, that I'm talking to them the same way that I'm talking to people that may live out in King's Charter or the Woodlands or something like that. The communication right now in this city is very, I want to say, spread out in terms of how we're living. I have people tell me all the time, I didn't know that I could go to that, and vice versa. So I have my white friends that say, I really want to go to Art of Noise. Can I go? Well, what's stopping you? Buy a ticket and you can come on in. I got my black friends that, hey, we're going to the Quirk rooftop. You want to go? We can go in Quirk. So I'm just saying, there is a very, very kind of separated viewpoint in this city when it comes to hanging out and having fun. And I'm here to change it as much as I can. I feel like people can socially connect in so many different ways. And I'm not downplaying RVA at all. I'm a big cheerleader for RVA and the way that it wants to work. But I need Richmond to kind of get involved a little bit. I need Richmond to understand the changes. I need RVA to respect Richmond in order to make those changes. We just became this food, craft beer, state city just over like the last 5 to 7 years. The fact that I was one of the first people to bring hip hop into the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, that's a problem. That was just 2 years ago. The fact that Louis Ginter calls us and is like, hey, we want to put a DJ out in the garden, that's great. But why are these conversations just now happening? Why is our dollar now just being valued? Why is it now that these things are coming to fruition? So I am very, very active about changing that narrative. And if that has to come from my personal brand, then it will. I am not as protective of my personal brand as my friends are. My village is very protective of it. I will get on social media. I don't know if anybody follows me on social media, but I will get into my rants on social media. I'll just say, if you follow Amanda Seals, then I'm like her, but local when I talk about stuff. And she's real into politics and stuff, but I make sure I say what I need to say. But sometimes I also have to remember that I am a brand. And that can hurt you sometimes. And so what I do is I have a team, I have a village that censors me. I run things through them. I know what things are going to push the limit a little bit. And then they go, don't worry, we got it. So there's a lot of things that I don't have to say that they say, and they protect the brand. But I always have to look at that, especially as I'm going into a brick and mortar, and say, I want people to come to the Urban Hang Suite. It's not going to be called the Urban Hang Suite, so just letting y'all know. That's just the concept, because I'm trying to take it to Hampton and Norfolk and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I just did the concept. concept, but I want people to come and just get involved and feel like they are a part of me and a part of the brand. And sometimes you have to censor and watch that. And that's a challenge, but it's something that I take on every day in terms of making sure people know who I am. And again, I go out strong with a bang when I talk about myself. I am proud of myself. I am happy currently. I wasn't before. So I can talk about my brands because I'm happy with them. I'm happy with the lives that I'm changing. I'm happy with the things that I'm doing. I know that I'm blessed. And that's one of the ways that I'm able to give back to other people by presenting my personal brand out there. So that's kind of pretty much the story of me and how I got to where I am now, and the things that I want to see going forward. So I think that's it, unless you guys got some questions. I guess you want to see Coffee with Strangers, huh? If you haven't seen that. Again, y'all get out of my business. Don't look. All right, this is the one drop today, but this is the most recent one that came out. So
it's Coffee with Strangers with Kelli Lennon.
Hey, it's Kelly, and today we're at the Virginia State Fair to ride the Ferris wheel with Daryl Watkins. Daryl's no stranger to in an aerial view. His company, Creative Dog Media, went from a side hustle to one of the premier aerial photography companies in RVA. Out at the Virginia State Fair, Coffee with Strangers once again. I love these new little mugs, so I want to get it in the shot as much as possible. Who are you, and what do you do in Richmond or surrounding counties?
My name is Daryl Watkins, and I own Creative Dog Media, aerial photography firm, primarily focused on the Central Virginia area. I love downtown Richmond in general, but we go everywhere.
When you see dope shots of Richmond, your name is usually on it.
We license images and video footage. We also go out and shoot actual projects. So if someone wanted, for example, the State Fair, they want the State Fair shot, you hire us to go do that.
Let me get into this.
My mom chased me with a camera a lot. I can remember everywhere we went, I was getting my photo taken. Just because I was a kid and she loved cameras. Fast forward 20 plus years, and I have kids, 2 daughters of my own. Early on, I was chasing them with a camera. So it just became natural. I've never really pursued it as anything other than a hobby until I flew a drone one time at a neighbor's barbecue. And before I landed it, I knew that I could make money on it.
You just said, let me buy this helicopter camera and see what I can do with it.
I bought it with the mindset that I could grow this into something that was recognizable, to be out somewhere, or even to have buddies that fly drones as well. For them to be out somewhere and to be told, "Are you Creative Dog Media?" Oh, that's a great feeling.
Yeah.
I love that.
Do you drink coffee?
I do. My beverage of choice is a latte.
Latte. Okay.
Every once in a while in the summer, I'll go iced latte, but for the most part, it's just a regular latte.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from Roanoke, Virginia, Star City of the South.
What brought you to Richmond?
I worked for one of the cellular carriers in Virginia Beach and was promoted to come up here and run the business markets for that company here in Richmond locally.
05, you said, right?
As a 5, yeah.
It's a little different.
One of the best parts about Creative Dog Media has been how much more of Richmond I've uncovered, because I continue to go out and try to challenge, and where can I find that I've never been? And it's been great, not just for me and for Creative Dog, but for my family to get a better feel for what's in Richmond.
Real quick, the Virginia State Fair runs through Sunday, October 8th, and it's just a quick trip up 95. So head on up for games, rides, animals, agriculture, and, of course, fried tail. Now back to the wheel. Where do you rest your head? Where's your family at? What part of town?
In Glen Allen.
In Glen Allen.
Yep.
Okay. Why did you all choose that part of town?
We didn't want urban, just because we both come from kind of a suburban background. And
How are y'all living Richmond with the family?
we do a lot of walking and hiking. We have 2 dogs, 2 labs. We do a lot at Pony Pasture. We go to Tredegar, Browns Island a fair amount. We love Carytown. My daughters have 2 teenage daughters. They love Carytown, and the food scene here is, for an old suburban guy, it's pretty good.
Last 3 places that you ate.
The Daily at Short Pump, love the new location.
The new
is
one.
convenient to us.
Yeah.
Casa del Marco is one of my, not just Richmond favorites, but one of my all-time favorite Mexican restaurants that I've ever been to in the world.
Wow. What do you think right now that Richmond is not
The
taking
ducks got y'all.
Get outside. Go enjoy the river, go enjoy the waterfront, the city, and the urban environment. I mean, it's a great city.
Friday night, the girls are gone, the wife is gone, Gerald has the house to himself. What's she doing?
Driven somewhere, or even to Monument Avenue area, somewhere other than Glen Allen, no offense, Glen Allen, to get ready to go shoot something. And then I'll grab some good food and bring it back and hang out with the dog.
Tell me a couple of images that you never thought would turn out amazing, and they did.
One of my favorite places to shoot is it's called the train bridge. People know it as also the CSX A-line bridge. I can go to that bridge and shoot it 7 days in a row at the exact same time and get something totally different. And new ideas will hit me. How do I want to fly it? How do I want to go? Do I want to fly really fast under it? Do I want to pull away and show the city and the skyline? That place never ceases to amaze me.
When you go out of town and someone says, what is Richmond? What's your elevator speech for Richmond?
Richmond is a great little city. It's not what you know as you drive down 95 from DC. Richmond's a great waterfront city that has great food scene, awesome nightlife, great beer, and lots of land if you want to live on the outskirts.
To hear the rest of my interview with Gerald, check out the Coffee with Strangers podcast in your preferred podcast app. Subscribe to this channel on YouTube and visit coffeewithstrangersrva.com to subscribe to the newsletter. Oh, and get to the Virginia State Fair before it ends Sunday, October 8th. Okay, see you soon.
There's Coffee with Strangers. A couple of things that I do want to talk about when we've been asked to kind of be on a lot of the different news networks. People ask, well, Kelli, why don't you go do news? No, because they'll censor me. And I don't want to be censored. I want to be able to tell these authentic stories. I don't want anybody to tell me what to wear, how to say things. If I want to cuss in the middle of it, I can. And so that's why we have kept it true to just being raw and organic. If the camera shakes, it shakes. If, we just want to make sure that we're telling the story. So we get a lot of feedback sometimes. We're like, well, you need to set the camera this way, and you need to do this way. And we're like, okay, thank you. Start your own. And, this is what we want to do. So I just wanted to make sure I said that. So
Kelli, before I open up for questions, I just have to say for those of you out there that Chili's has better Mexican food than Casa del Bar.
okay. Oh, Chili's is a sponsor.
It's horrible. So, I live 10 steps from it. Anyway, so any questions for Kelli?
I don't know who has.
Yeah, you got one.
Yeah.
Do you need a mic?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you. So it seems like a lot of your successes have ridden on networking, hard work, dedication, and certainly taking risks.
Yeah.
And so I was hoping, for someone who's looking to bust into doing their own thing eventually, whatever that may be, just to really, if you can shed light on the importance of networking, of taking risks, of putting your neck on the line, because you don't know what you'll get in return.
Yeah, and I mean, exactly that. Entrepreneurs can't be afraid to fail. You can't be afraid to kind of step outside the box and try something. When I used to work at VCU, my number one motto when a student came and ran up to me and said something, I was like, whoa, somebody died? And they would give me that look, no, Kelli, no one's dead. All right, well, hold on then. We're good. Whatever we're about to do, we are pretty good if no one's dead. And I kind of looked at my next moves this way. I am scared shitless about this Urban Hang Suite. But I am confident in myself. So although I'm afraid of what it's going to be, I know what it's going to be. And so I'm excited about that as well. So I really think that you have to be ready to fail. Your first idea may not be it. But it will so teach you so many things for that second and third idea that probably will work. And that was one of the things. You might not be this person, I put this disclaimer out there because I'm spiritual. I'm not real religious, but I do pray. And as soon as I prayed specifically for things, woo, a whole nother like way of living. And when I say specifically, like my prayers in the morning is, Lord, I'm about to go talk to these students. What am I gonna say? I don't know if I've had enough coffee. I don't know if they'll be awake. They got a big event that night. What am I gonna say to them? Lord, please allow me to just deliver a message from my heart as best as possible to these students about my personal brand. And hopefully they take something away with it. And nobody looks dead, so I think we're good. Yeah, but I think that when I started really, really putting that in the universe, and to people that may not believe in God, say, just speaking things into existence, putting that energy out there, it started to help. And not listening to everybody, because some people don't want you to win. So. Did that hurt? That one right there, that last part, that got you, right? That was it.
No, that is so true.
Yeah, that was it. And you hate that they are, might be him. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But you hate that, but you gotta, again, know yourself better than that. So, do you need a mic or are you good?
No.
Okay.
So you talked about the two, you talked about Richmond versus RVA.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that when I came to Richmond, this was the last place on earth I wanted to be. I was here at VCU in 1998.
Okay.
And so I'd like you to tell us, why does Richmond matter to you? And why do you want to see Richmond pushed? And for someone who doesn't want to be here, who's experienced Richmond and RVA, what would you say to them to say, you know what, you should stay here, you should look at this again?
Yeah, so going a little bit deeper into, when I said Richmond was a crime capital of the world. Richmond, as y'all know, we are dealing with a failing school system. We have food deserts. There's, not places where some of us that have to depend on government housing can get fresh produce. Our public transportation system, all of those things are just now being addressed, but they were always a part of Richmond. And so gentrification, major issue in the city of Richmond. And I'll just be honest, Churchill, Northside, Blackwell, I don't know where that's at, huh? That's Manchester. All of those areas were where it was mostly black population. Richmond used to be 53% black. And that's changed now because people are moving into these areas and they're getting these houses at a very, very cheap rate. Now, let me say this. At 24, VCU allowed me to buy my first house. And I bought my first house over in Northside, off of Brooklyn Park and Fendall Avenue. I don't know if any of you guys know where that part of town is. When I bought my house back in 2000, so to one side of me was what's those, boarding houses? So a bunch of people in one house, and then the other side of me was the drug house. I mean, literally, I bought my house, again, I don't mind talking about it, you can look it up. I bought my house for $36,000. Okay, 2 houses down, just sold for $330,000. So, again, I'm sitting here looking at my little $36,000 house like, I'm not going anywhere. I saw how I knew it was going to change back in 2000. And now that it's changed, who I'm concerned about is my neighbor across the street that's 75, that's lived there all his life. And he cannot keep up. He can't keep up with the outside of the house. He can't, they're redoing all of these houses to make them modern. And unfortunately, our houses are kind of sticking out like a sore thumb right now. So we have to get with the times, or we gotta go. So that's kind of the push out that is happening a little bit in Richmond. It can be a good and a bad thing though, because we are changing some neighborhoods. Some people are moving to these neighborhoods, white, black, and other, and then they're sending their kids to Richmond public schools. They're not taking their kids out to private schools or to the counties. They're taking their kids and they're putting them in Richmond public schools, and they're getting involved. So now our school systems are getting better because we're not kind of running away from the situation. We're going to make sure we're part of the situation. Then when we look at public transportation, what they're doing with the Pulse. Do y'all know about that? There's traffic in Richmond only because of the Pulse. Broad Street right now is being torn up because they're putting a Pulse, which is going to take you from Willow Lawn to Rockets Landing in 21 minutes instead of it taking you 37 minutes. But public transportation, the bikes, shares that are all around, the fact that Uber, Lyft, all of those things are, ways to kind of get around that's affordable, that's allowing people to do things. The schools, in terms of the administration, we gotta pray about that a little bit more. But then the farmers markets, the fact that people are loyal to local, the fact that people are shopping local, we're keeping the money right here in Richmond. So all of those people that have been here all of their lives, I think they just were feeling left out and feeling like, how are we gonna be a part of this new city? And VCU has a lot to do with the new RVA, not only because you guys, I think, came up with the brand of RVA, but also because you're staying here because you found your significant other, the cost of living is affordable, and you got this stellar job. And so you're staying here and you're starting your family, and that's how the city is kind of being more and more diverse. I just want people to understand when you start your family that there's people that have been here before you. And so, don't ignore them, know their story, find out why they stayed and why they're part of Richmond, and the story of it all might just give you that feeling inside of you to want to stay and continue with the change. I love craft beers. I love the fact that we can eat. I love the diversity, not only from race, but also by any other thing that you want to be diverse for. I love that part of RVA, but at the same time, we cannot ignore what happened in Richmond. So I hope I answered your question. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Are you involved with any nonprofits that we could possibly volunteer with to help build the community?
Yes. Now, here's another thing. Sometimes VCU gets criticized because students come in, they go out into the community for 4 years and then they're gone. So you got that kid that was 6 years old, and by 10, when he really needs you, you're gone. And so when I say that, I just say it as, if you're going to stay here, continue to help these organizations and stick with them. So Art 180, I don't know if any of you all help with Art 180. They are a huge, I want to give them so much because they are definitely changing the way that these inner city kids are looking at art. Also, I'm a big fan of Studio 23, Ashley Hawkins and what she's doing over there. She will have coffee with me soon. I'm doing a Coffee with Strangers live. That first lipstick, then coffee is going to be with her live. Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club. They are all over Metro Richmond. Those kids really, really need, mentors to look up to, and any kind of mentor. But if you do go over there, find somebody else to come in after you. Like introduce the next mentor to this person so they can have a good elementary, middle school, and high school career with somebody. The Tricycle Court. I think I'm saying their name right. The guys that are teaching the kids in Gilpin how to ride bikes. I don't know if you've seen anything. Tricycle Corps? Cycle Corps. I know something. Yeah. I like what they're doing. The YWCA. They are doing some good stuff right now. I know I'm going to forget somebody, and I hate that there's a lot of dope people that I need to recognize from a nonprofit, but those are the ones that I'm involved with or know a little bit more information about. Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club, I sit on their board, so I can really talk about them. They're building a $3 million new facility in Churchill, and their focus is really to get those kids in there. New pool, new fitness, new community kitchen, so I really talk about them because there's so many different facets of it. Yes, sir.
You can really command a room.
Thank you.
How does the one get on your level?
That's funny. I'm gonna be real for a second. I can do this, but if you were just right here, it's not as good. I can talk to a lot of people, but I think I say I have ADD. It doesn't allow for me to have one-on-one conversations with people. And you know, there's also a part of me that just can speak from my heart and not, again, get scared of if you're gonna judge me. Now, I'm about to be 42. I don't care what y'all have to say about me. When we leave, if you're like, she really put Jordans on with that dress, and you know, that Guess jacket is so like late. I don't care. Like I just don't. And if I see you guys again, I hope that you know speak to me in the streets. But I think that's what allows me to tell my story, and I can talk about it in front of large groups because it's mine. You know what I'm saying? And now, if you wanted me to talk to something about y'all just learned in class, I'd be all over the place. Like it wouldn't be good. But I think that's why. And I like to be transparent too. I have a little bit of humility in me, but I have a lot of realness in me. And so, what I've noticed is when I say stuff, it helps in a weird way. And so, that's a good feeling for me. So I'm just like. Say it, Kelly. Just say it and see what happens.
One or two more, if there are one or two more questions.
Okay. I don't know if there are. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. Ooh.
Oh, I just want to add on to that. Usually when we have speakers here, it comes like Saturday night at the Apollo. So far, no phones have been buzzing. Oh, yeah. Good job.
So that's good.
Yes.
Thank y'all. I'm not the typical speaker too, right? You get to hear people into advertising and, you know, giving you your resume. So, hey, I can hire y'all. If any of y'all know how to make coffee, a couple salads, smoothie bowls, clean some toilets, I got you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I wanted to go back to that. I was getting written up in a lot of things, and I was kind of out there a lot, publications, magazines, news. There was a lot going on. And again, I told my village, who are my family and friends, I said, y'all, I don't like all this. I don't, you know, people are going to start, you know, saying she's doing too much. She needs to sit down somewhere. We are tired of seeing her. And I was like, you know what? I cannot stand Kelli Lemon. Like, I really hate her. And I made it and put it on a shirt. And it just, when I walk around in it, people are like, but aren't you Kelli Lemon? And I'm like, yeah, big hair. So you can't hate me if I already hate myself, you know? Yeah.
I think that was a perfect way to end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it, y'all. And I can't wait to see what y'all do. I'm a big fan of the Brandcenter. Ever since I've worked at VCU, I remember when it got started. So I'm excited to see what y'all do in the future. But I hope that you stay in Richmond and continuously make it dope and different.